Originally from Connecticut, Alf Anderson graduated from Nichols College in Dudley, Massachusetts, and spent the next 15 years on Boston's North Shore, working in the academic publishing industry where he oversaw a national events program and later managed a sales team with annual revenues surpassing $8 million. In 2013, he continued moving northward and settled in Bar Harbor, Maine, where he has since lived with his wife, Heather. Alf developed an interest in marketing at a young age and dreamed of having a career in advertising. His career started, sort of in marketing, as an events planner where he arranged hundreds of conferences and academic events for Blackwell publishers. After a few years in the role, he shifted gears to advertising sales in medical and scientific journals. With the Great Recession came a career setback and an opportunity for a career change. In 2015, the Bar Harbor Chamber was looking for someone to run their events program, and Alf put his experience in that area to use. Over the next 4 years, he took on the marketing and membership roles for the Chamber, and he has just recently been named as the Chamber's next executive director. And I personally couldn't be more proud. The Bar Harbor Chamber is a client of Marshall Communications. We have been working with them for several years, and Alf is a real delight to work with. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. Okay, so Alf, to kick things off, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
I always find that to be such a strange question to answer, because maybe it's because I've sort of been a little bit all over the place in what was my career in quotes there. But so I always say I lucked into it. So I lucked into where I landed, but it also a lot of hard work as well. So I mean, I started in academic publishing right before the turn of the century, so Y2K and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
I was organizing events, sort of working in related to marketing, but it was really logistics and event planning. And but I learned a lot from the marketing folks around me, and it was a really great entry into the world of marketing. And then eventually moved into a sales role, which learned a lot there as well. Still in academic publishing, and things seemed to be going really well, rolling along in what would be my academic publishing career. And then the Great Recession, as we're now calling it, hit, and things changed a little, and got hit what now is a speed bump. At the time seemed like devastation. But the good thing is it sort of led me north from my time in Boston or around Boston up to Bar Harbor, where I eventually started working for the Bar Harbor Chamber of Commerce. And I've been there for over 4 years now, and just recently promoted into the role of executive director. So like I said, sort of a circuitous route to get where I am. A lot of luck, some hard work, and some perseverance, to be sure.
Well, congratulations on your recent promotion to executive director. The Bar Harbor Chamber has been a client of Marshall Communications for many years now, and we're so delighted that you're going to be the executive director, and we think it's definitely well-deserved.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it.
Yeah. So if you had it to do all over again, Alf, would you do anything differently?
That's tough to say. I mean, I guess I would say no, but I'd just be smarter about the decisions I made, take a few more risks, especially when I was younger. I wish I had been a little bit more willing to take some chances here or there. but I'm really glad where I've ended up. And I think the one piece of advice I would, I guess, give my younger self would be to, try to find something that really fits your passion and is personally fulfilling. Working with a community-based organization now, it's so tied into the community that the chamber. I find that so personally fulfilling to see sort of the good work really play out both on a government or town level, our partnerships with the town of Bar Harbor and Acadia National Park, but also on the small business side of things and seeing some of our small businesses really succeed and thrive because of the work that we do. So I guess if I had it to do over again, it would be sort of find that sooner. So I'd, find a little bit more personally fulfilling work.
Well, of course, it must be so wonderful to wake up and go to work in such a beautiful place. I mean, isn't the word Eden? It's like Bar Harbor is like the Garden of Eden, one of the most beautiful places on earth.
Yeah, I mean, it was originally founded as the town of Eden, right? And they named it because of that, the gorgeous, most beautiful place they could think of, eventually renamed as Bar Harbor. But yeah, every day I drive to work or I just take a little walk downtown and have to stop and think to myself, you're very lucky to live and work here. Not everybody gets a chance to have such an amazing backdrop to, pretty much everything, even just running errands. You look around and like, oh yeah, there's, Acadia National Park and the ocean to the other side. And it's just an amazing place to live. And I'm very fortunate.
Had you been there before you started working there? I mean, did you go there growing up with your family or anything?
No, so the story I've told a million times is my wife Heather, grew up in southern Maine, and she had spent time in Bar Harbor when she was in college. She's a graduate of the University of Maine, and so when one of our first getaways as a couple was to Bar Harbor, and we stayed at one of the nearby towns and went for a visit and spent did all the great touristy things and had lobster on the water and took a hike in Acadia and drove to the summit of Cadillac Mountains. We did all the iconic things in Bar Harbor and Acadia, and it was just amazing, of course, right? I loved it. I fell in love with the place. But we didn't go back for 6 or 7 years because, we were traveling everywhere else in the world. So eventually she was looking for a new job, and she was offered a position in Bar Harbor. And at the time, I was pretty flexible in what I was doing. So I said, sure, I've been there once. Let's pack up and go. And so I had been to Bar Harbor once, and we decided to take a chance and move north and live just outside of a national park. So it sort of worked out as a little bit of a fairy tale for us, but definitely didn't have a lot of ties to Bar Harbor before that. But I sure do now.
Yeah, exactly. And it is the kind of place that many families have been going to for generations, and even some very prominent families like the Rockefellers, for example, right? I mean, that's part of the allure, I think, of Bar Harbor is all of the family history that's there.
It's absolutely true. I mean, the Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts. I mean, some of the homes that are standing that were once occupied and owned by some of those great American families is just part of the whole experience. Sure, there's the national park, but there's also sort of the sightseeing of those great places, and just to think about some of the people that have walked the shore path before, and it's a great sort of mix of everything, the history and nature, and it just all works really well together.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the shore path. I'm going to be in Bar Harbor for the next couple of days, and I'm really looking forward to walking that shore path. I just love walking it, and of course, I can't help but take pictures and post to Instagram. And I mean, it's just so Instagram worthy.
Yeah, no doubt. And one of my favorite things about the shore path, it's like literally one of my favorite places in town is to just walk the shore path. It's a nice short walk, but there's always plenty of dogs too. So Bar Harbor is such a dog friendly place. People love to take their dogs out for walks on the shore path, and so you get to see the beauty of nature and also scratch some dog ears too.
Yeah, it's nice. It's very nice. So can you give me an example, Alf, of how PR and social media have helped to advance you personally or the Bar Harbor Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I would say more the Bar Harbor Chamber. I'm not overly active personally on social, but the chamber for sure takes advantage of, the great work that Marshall does in our PR program, social media programs. We really focus on engagement, especially on social media. We're really trying to create brand loyalists, people that will do the work for us after, like, right? You see some great photos on our site. You might have experienced that at a previous visit, or you might be planning your visit and now that's part of your agenda. And we hear from people day in and day out. This was our vacation. I remember this spot, that the photo you're sharing. So we really work hard to create and cultivate those brand loyalists. And it's really benefited us in a great way, because as a membership organization, we rely on, our members to sort of allow us to do the work that we do. And by being able to demonstrate the engagement and the love that people have of the things we're doing, and the area and the photos and all that, delivering on that value to our members is really what keeps us moving forward. So those are probably the most key takeaways for us in terms of PR, social media. It's really driving engagement to sort of create those people who love the place and keep them coming back.
Well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack in what you just said, but for one thing, brand ambassadors, Bar Harbor is just such a beautiful place, and people create such memories there, memories that last a lifetime, and they just want to use their social media to share with their family and friends. And really, there's nothing better for marketing than word of mouth marketing. And if your cousin or your aunt or uncle has gone there, or your best friend, and they share their memories, and then you're like, oh, wow, I want to go there too. So I think that's, you have a great backdrop for that kind of marketing. Of course, Whitney from our office had her beautiful wedding there last year, and all of us from Marshall Communications luckily were invited. And yeah, I mean, we just were sharing constantly throughout the wedding weekend, and it was just such a great and beautiful time. So
yeah,
I'm glad
exactly.
Whitney. I'm glad Whitney chose Bar Harbor for her wedding and invited us all.
Yeah, I saw some of those photos. It looked like you guys had a great time. So it was fun for sure.
Yeah. So I know that PR, marketing, and certainly social media have changed drastically over the course of my career. What techniques are you using now that you were not using when you first started out in your career?
Well, specifically, or I should say generally, social media, right? When I started back in 1999, there was no such thing. And I had people I was working with at that point who were, like amazed at how fluent I was in just using things like email and sharing files. So in that time, it's moved a great deal. But specifically, we're really focusing on driving that engagement. The brand ambassadors, the term you used earlier, is trying to create those brand ambassadors. We've in the past, the chamber has done some mass marketing, TV advertising, some really expensive print advertising to try and capture some of those visitors to our area. But we've found that we can be much more targeted in where we spend our money. We can focus really specifically on the types of people that we want to reach. And that kind of stuff just didn't exist 10, 15 years ago, to be able to say, I want to reach this very specific demographic of potential visitors. And you can do that. You can literally reach those people with a very targeted spend, whether it's through a programmatic advertising campaign, or whether it's on social media, or whether it's through some of the great PR work that your team does for us. We can find the right venues, we can find the right people. And so specifically, that's where we've really changed what we do over the last five or so years.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about demographics, and of course, one of the things you can do with social is target people that live in a certain geographic area, certain age range, certain income. But then there's also the psychographic. So, you want people that enjoy outdoor adventure, or, food, or a specific kind of food, seafood, or, boat cruises or hiking. So it's not only the straight demographics, but also the type of person within that demographic. Because, I mean, you could have a 50-year-old person who makes $50,000 and lives in Newton, Massachusetts, but that person might like to go to inner city tourism destinations as opposed to beautiful outdoor destinations. So you want to dig even deeper. And another great thing I think about social targeting is lookalikes. So you can take the people that already are following you and look at your brand ambassadors and say, hey, social media, like whether it's Facebook or Instagram, give me people that look just like these people that are already engaged. So yeah, those kinds of techniques certainly did not exist, as you say, in the last century.
Exactly.
And yeah, I know one of the lessons that I learned from one of my most influential bosses back before I had my own business was, to really take advantage of all of the technology that is available to us now in marketing. And I feel that, I've always tried with my agency to stay on top of all of that. Because if you just sort of dig your heels in and say, oh, I just want to keep doing what I've always done, then you're always going to get the results that you've always gotten, which might not be that great.
No, it's absolutely true. And we apply that at the chamber, personally, like I don't use a lot of the social media. I don't use Snapchat or TikTok or any of those kinds of things, but we evaluate those things on a pretty regular basis. Is this something that we want to apply? Is this something our audience is looking for? And if we find it's valuable, we'll start working on something like that or start applying it. But it's important, like you said. I think it's a really great lesson to take with you. And is if you're not adaptable, you're probably going to get left behind. So you got to be able to roll with the punches.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned Snapchat and TikTok because some of that applies again to the demographics and psychographics. For example, Facebook is not used anymore by millennials and younger generations because all of us older people have kind of ruined it for them. But, if you are targeting grandparents, I mean, a lot of grandparents are using Facebook because that's like how they do connect with their grandchildren. And if you want to target younger people, certainly Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok are the way to go. So I think as people are determining their social media strategy, it's important to look at who you're trying to attract. And also, it's also important, I think you'd agree, like to only embrace the number of platforms that you can reasonably manage. So I always think it's better to go deep than broad. So rather than say, hey, we're going to do Pinterest, or we're going to do Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the different social networks, it's better to choose a few, at least when you're getting started, and really engage in those because it's nothing worse than having some horrible comment on a platform that you don't check, dangling out there that you can't respond to.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We try to keep it to the ones that we're good at and that our users and visitors are engaged with. And I think you're right. It's better to do a few really well than to do a bunch of them not quite so well. And so right now we're not looking to do any of those, any like Snapchat or anything like that. But if it does change, if the demographics do change, we might need to sort of shift our focus there. But for now, I think we're going to stick with the ones for the reaching the grandparents, like the grandparents and the parents like myself.
And where do you get the most engagement, Alf?
So probably Facebook for sure. We get the most engagement and comments and shares. But our Instagram channel has been growing much faster over the past 2 or 3 years. I know that's part of the market has been sort of shifting that way too. But I think it shows the maturing of the millennial age demographic, right? So I know a lot of folks still scoff at millennials and they sort of think of teenagers in the back seat, but realistically, millennials are now in their 30s and have kids of their own, some of them. And that is why I think we're seeing a lot of that growth in Instagram because those are visitors now. Those are people who have careers and are taking their families on vacations. And they want it. they're engaged, sharing photos just like everybody else on social media. So we've been seeing a huge growth in Instagram in the last 2 or 3 years, but still Facebook is probably our number one.
Right. Yeah. Well, definitely. Again, if you're promoting a destination that has so many beautiful features, it makes sense to leverage Instagram for sure, and Instagram
Yeah, the photos
stories.
sort of do the work for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Alf, what have been some of the obstacles to success in your career, and how have you overcome them?
Well, do recessions count as obstacles? Because
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was
Definitely.
the biggest one. I think I mentioned it earlier. I thought I was on a pretty straight upward trajectory in terms of my career, and the recession hit, money got tight, and middle management gets released. So I found myself trying to find my next step forward, and it took me a good 2 years to kind of figure out what it was I was looking for. And I ended up, I went from working to, leading a sales team with a $8 million a year budget to I was literally working at Trader Joe's and cashing people out with their groceries. And I don't mean to make that sound like it was a hardship on me or it was beneath me in any way. It was actually one of the most rewarding work experiences I've ever had. And I think one of the things I took away from I cite my 6-month stint at Trader Joe's all the time, because if you've ever shopped there, you become a brand ambassador of Trader Joe's, right? People love shopping there. You get that positive experience. And I've taken a lot of that with me. And I think to sort of answer the second part of your question, how have you overcome those obstacles? It's been keeping a positive attitude and remembering what's good in my life and taking that stuff forward. So, when I had to sort of figure out what my career was going to look like going forward, I just always remember, I'm very fortunate. I have good things in my life. I have a wife who loves me, a family supporting me. And we moved to one of the most beautiful places in the world in Bar Harbor. And I sort of found my footing there. It took me a couple of years to really get moving. But now that I'm working at the chamber, I found something I absolutely love doing. And I really appreciate every day of it to be able to go to work, supporting the local business community, the folks that live in this amazing area. And so I think it's just, for me, it's just always remembering the good things and trying to keep, looking forward in a positive way and not looking back at some of the negatives.
I totally agree with you about feeling grateful and the power of gratitude. And I'm glad you brought that up. And also the Trader Joe's thing. Everybody in our office is a big fan of that. Is it the special kind of salt? What's the salt? Everything but salt, or I don't know. There's a special salt. There's a special salt blend, and I'm embarrassed that I can't remember what it's called exactly. But I know that whenever anybody from my office in Augusta goes to the Trader Joe's in Portland, it's like salt for everybody. So anyway,
yeah.
But
everybody has their favorite Trader Joe's product.
Yeah, and it does have kind of a cult following, which I think is so cool. Definitely like a Trader Joe's nation. And I like the newsletter that they send out, because they send out a sort of an old-fashioned newsletter in the mail, which is so unheard of. It's like, wow, something in the mail from Trader Joe's, and has recipes and stories and it's cartoons. It's really a cool piece of direct mail. So I like that. It's sort of retro. Yeah. So we're going to continue our conversation with Alf in just a moment. But now I'd love to invite everyone listening today to be part of the first anniversary celebration of the PR Maven podcast. And Alf, I hope you'll come to Portland on September 25th. We're going to have a party and it's going to be at Rising Tide Brewery. So we're celebrating our first successful year. And the most successful podcast so far has been Lieutenant Tim Cotton from the Bangor Police Department, who is brilliant at Facebook posting. He has talk about a brand following. I mean, Tim Cotton just he has all of these people who just listen or read his every word and like and share and engage and comment. So he has mastered the Facebook thing, and he's been quite contrarian because everybody said, oh, you should always post short things and make it visual. And many days, Lieutenant Cotton just posts these long diatribes, just all words. But he's such a witty writer, such a good writer, that people read every word that he writes. And so I'm going to be doing a live interview with Lieutenant Cotton in front of an audience at this party. And of course, we'll have beer from Rising Tide and lots of good food. And I'm just so excited about it. And it's coming right up. It's hard to believe. So anyway, if anyone listening, a part of PR Maven Nation, wants to join us, just join the Facebook page for PR Maven Nation. It's a group, and you'll be invited to the party, and it's in Portland, Maine. And actually, speaking of PR Maven Nation, we're going to be giving away one of my books, which is called PR Works, and one of our famous things to do today pads. And anyone who wants to win a copy of the book and the pad should go to prmaven.com/giveaway and enter today. You could be our next winner. So we'll be back with in just a moment with Alf Anderson from the Bar Harbor Chamber of Commerce. This podcast is all about growing your network in order to strengthen your brand. In my 30-plus year marketing and PR career, I have seen many organizations waste their precious time and money on marketing because they're trying to obtain success without any strategy to achieve their goals. So many organizations and companies suffer from what I call the shiny object syndrome, trying every new fad that comes down the pike. That's why I created the Marshall Plan 15 years ago. We have done over 100 of these plans for clients, helping them to get out of their day-to-day routine to identify their goals, solidify their brand story, focus in on their ideal customer avatar, analyze their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and create a realistic budget and measurement dashboard. We create the Marshall Plan collaboratively with our clients over the course of 3 months. We have a 65-step process to create a highly customized, actionable plan. And it's not like we come in and say, we are the consultants from away and we know everything. Instead, we come in and say, let's sit down at the table with your leadership team and we'll bring our expertise in what's working in PR and marketing. And our client team brings their knowledge of what's working in their organization. And together we come up with a really amazing plan. For many, it's been a transformative process. I have watched how teams have come together and their faces light up because they have such a sense of accomplishment and they're so excited about the future of their organization. We help our client figure out the best way to implement the plan, sometimes using people within their organization and sometimes with our help. We would love to chat with you about how you can expand your network and achieve your marketing goals with a Marshall Plan. Go to marshallpr.com/MarshallPlan to learn more about the process, or better yet, send me an email at nancy@prmaven.com and we'll set up a time to talk and get started. And now back to our conversation. So welcome back, and today we're talking with Alf Anderson, Executive Director of the Bar Harbor Chamber of Commerce in beautiful Maine, my home state, and I want to dive right back in with more questions. Alf, how do you measure success in PR, social media, and marketing for the Bar Harbor Chamber?
Well, I'm fortunate to have the great team at Marshall Communications do most of the actual measuring for me, but the key for us, because we're a membership organization, the key is always delivering value to our members. So that's job one for us, is make sure that whatever we're doing is valuable to our members in terms of driving, guests to their restaurant or visitors to their website or social media platforms or whatever it might be. So for us, we use basic metrics and including social media followers, engagement on social, web traffic on our site, but also even more important is like how much of that traffic on our channels and website it delivers traffic and actual guests to our member businesses. So we launched a new website in sort of middle of 2018, and that traffic has really this year has increased by over 30% so far year to date. And we feel like the work we put into that, the work that everyone's doing on social media, has really started to deliver increased value for our members who are invested in the work that we do. And that's really what it comes down to for us. So if we're succeeding, it should translate into success for our members as well.
Well, I love the fact that you launched a new website, and it is a beautiful website. And I do think that, again, we were talking about how things have changed over the course of our respective careers. And, you can learn so much from the traffic, how people visit your website, how they move through it, how long they stay on pages, where they're coming from. I always find that fascinating to see sometimes like the most obscure referral sources for a website. And, again, we talked about lookalikes with social media targeting, but it's like, hey, this is working. Let's do more of this. And wow, this page, nobody's looking at this page. So let's either get rid of it or let's make it better. And I feel badly for any business or organization that doesn't take the time to look at their Google Analytics. And I know it sometimes sounds a little overwhelming and seems time consuming, but it's the best focus group you could have, like on a day-to-day basis, is just seeing the way people are using your website. So.
Yeah, I actually, because of the value of analytics, I actually set myself a calendar, like a standing appointment just for myself every Monday morning at, I think, 10 o'clock to check our analytics. And just, you don't see a lot of shift in a week's time, but it sort of reinforces, for me anyway, the importance. Every week I want to take a quick look at things and make sure if something has changed, like, be able to look at it pretty quickly and maybe make some changes if necessary. But to me, it's really important to keep an eye on those things.
Yeah. And I mean, again, with working with public relations and media relations, if you have a story on CBS Sunday Morning or the New York Times or USA Today, there may be a story, or there might even be a reference that you don't know about. And all of a sudden, thousands of people are coming to your site. So that's something that you might not even be aware of unless you are checking. So again, there's so much to be learned from seeing those kinds of patterns. It's almost a shame if you don't pay attention to it.
It really is.
So, Alf, most successful people have a network of fans and followers. I created PR Maven Nation so that I could have a network of fans and followers. But so either online or in person or both. Tell me how you have built your network of fans and followers, and has it been a conscious goal or has it happened on its own?
Well, how we built it, I'll put it succinctly. Acadia National Park helps. Having the national park in your backyard really does help build that network of fans and followers. But then there's a lot of work that goes into sort of maintaining that network and delivering value to those people, those followers, people who are, who want to, whether their vacation might have been last week or 6 years ago, but they're following us so they can, be reminded of that trip or their next trip. Like they can see, okay, this is the place I can't wait to get back to. So for us, it's great to sort of curate that network through our social media channels and on our website. But ultimately, for us, the goal, delivering value for our members, we do that through providing a great visitor experience, and that happens both online and in person. So we answer questions online 24 hours a day. If they're there, we engage with people who are commenting on our social channels, and then in person, we've got 2 visitor centers, on certain days we've got a third one open as well, where we're meeting people face to face and answering their questions and providing positive ideas for them. addressing concerns they might have. And it all comes down to delivering that great experience so that when they do, if they're not here, if they are still planning that next trip or they've just gone home, they'll remember what a great time they had. I just got a comment from somebody on Facebook yesterday who a month ago reached out and said, could you recommend a sightseeing tour? And we sent him a couple of suggestions. Well, he's now taken his trip and he sent a note yesterday that said, I can't thank you guys enough for the suggestions. We just got back from Acadia and Bar Harbor. We had the best time, loved it so much. Everybody was so nice. We can't wait to come back. And that's the kind of experience we want to cultivate day in and day out. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I mean, it's great to have a beautiful natural setting, but then when you add on top of that really friendly people and, human beings are social beings. So in order to have a great vacation experience, you want to have, face-to-face interaction with people. And, there's actually hormones that transmit between people live and in person when they're standing face to face that make you feel happy, and serotonin and oxytocin, which are like calming and happiness hormones. And you can't replicate that on social media. I mean, just clicking and commenting and sharing is great, but there's nothing like face to face. And that's really the whole platform of this podcast, and one of the reasons why I wanted to create it in the first place is that I feel that as marketers, we need to do both. We need to interact online, but the ultimate goal is to get people face to face with you. And I'm so glad that you have, sometimes 4 visitor centers where your visitors can actually talk with a local person and get that kind of local advice, mouth to mouth, so to speak. There's nothing like that. Nothing
For
to replace
sure.
that. Yeah. So, Alf, how has your network helped you to advance your career? I mean, in Bar Harbor, obviously, you've created a network of local business people, the chamber members, and they obviously saw your potential, and that's part of the reason why you recently were promoted to executive director.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's been we talked earlier about adapting. It's identifying some things that might not have been working great in the past, and being willing to take on different, put forth new ideas and take on new challenges. And I think our members and our board members saw that I was willing to evaluate these things and do the things that would move us forward in a different direction. And I think that's sort of what's allowed me to grow, especially at the chamber. Gaining the trust of our members, knowing them personally, and them having the faith in me to make good, smart, well-researched decisions that will help drive, not just the chamber. I mean, the chamber is a vehicle for our members, and if our members, like I said earlier, if our members are succeeding, the chamber is succeeding, and vice versa. So I think it's really been that sort of willingness to be open-minded and try new things, and of course having them work and be successful is important too. And that sort of delivered that trust and respect from our members.
Right, exactly. And, right now we're talking in August, which is pretty much peak season for you, but I'm sure one of the things that you've worked on is building those shoulder seasons and getting more people, more visitors coming to extend the season of your businesses.
Yeah, I mean, so the story goes, it used to be that Bar Harbor was, they turned the lights on Memorial Day weekend, then turn them off on Labor Day weekend.
Huh.
And that's just simply not the case anymore. You can come any time of year and have a great experience. But the season, a lot of we still do have some seasonal businesses that, that close their doors for part of the year. But that is really extended to early May, some cases mid-April for some businesses, all the way through to second or third day of November. It's really extended beyond those original walls, and that's a lot of that work is due to concerted effort by the Chamber of Commerce, the town of Bar Harbor itself, and the business community that really wants to see opportunity year round. So those shoulder seasons have now been built up, and we're now working. My goal is not to bring more people to Bar Harbor in July and August, because we're doing pretty well there. And my job now is to try and get people to Bar Harbor in, say, December or February, when like I said, you can have a great experience in Bar Harbor and in the national park that time of year. But people don't necessarily know about that. So that's where we're really trying to get the word out for that wasn't even a shoulder season before. That was just like the off season or the dead season.
Dead season.
Now it's in play. Now there's an opportunity for a business to be open in January through April and really do some good work.
Well, something that I have never done there but would love to do is Nordic skiing. I'd love to be there someday. I mean, I can picture it in my mind how beautiful it would be to go cross country skiing, along the ocean there. And so, looking forward, that's something that I want to plan to do. So I think, Bar Harbor in wintertime, I think there's a lot of allure to that.
Yeah, for sure. You should come on up. We'll take some photos and put them on Instagram.
Okay. And maybe we'll do an Instagram story. And I love the idea
Perfect.
of that. So, in your line of work, Alf, what is a resource such as a book, a website, an app that you have found to be helpful, and why?
So I'm embarrassed that the answer isn't books or a book. But I've never been much of a self help book reader. And this is even to further add to the embarrassment. The answer here, I think, would be Twitter. And I know it sounds a little weird to say that because in some ways Twitter is like some of the worst place on the internet. But what I find valuable in Twitter is that it's effective. It's instantaneous, and you can find all kinds of information, whether good or bad. But in terms of travel and tourism, you can get instant feedback with visitors, who are either on the ground or on their way here, or just leaving here. It's a great way to engage. And I've learned a ton from people on Twitter sharing articles or ideas that I probably never would have found if I wasn't engaged with them as a fellow Twitter user. So I wouldn't necessarily advise anyone to dive into Twitter if you're not familiar in terms of like politics or anything like that. But for tourism and finding people that have similar interests, I found Twitter to be a really valuable tool.
Well, and from a public relations perspective, Twitter is like a secret weapon because most journalists use Twitter for the very reason you're talking about, because there is so much, it's so highly searchable, and you can find out information immediately. There are people out there tweeting things, in real time. So from a PR perspective, if you're interested in getting a story into a certain publication, you can sort of follow and, engage with a journalist on Twitter. And journalists are more likely to respond to direct messages on Twitter than they are to something that comes through email in their inbox. So I hate to give that away. It's one of our my team at Marshall Communications will be like, Nancy, that's our secret weapon. But I am putting it out there for all of PR Maven Nation to listen to and try it out. So, Alf, what would be one piece of advice that you have for someone who's just starting out in their career?
I think my one piece of sage advice to anyone, whether they're starting out or if they've been in doing something for a long time, is just listen. I know it's not unique. I'm not the first person to say it, of course, but it's so important to listen to people. And I think listening skills are something that just haven't, in a lot of ways, have just kind of fallen by the wayside. People are always thinking about what am I going to say next instead of listening to what this person or this group of people have to say. And I've also found that you might surprise some people if you're around the table, not the one who's chiming in every 2 or 3 seconds or every couple of minutes. You're listening and absorbing, and then eventually you do share something. People will listen, and they might actually value what you're saying more than if you've been talking and sharing the entire time. Now, of course, if you have important things to say, speak up. But I think listening skills are one of the most important things that I try to be an active listener in every meeting, in every instance that I can, and I think it's really important for people, especially starting out. You don't have to be shouting ideas at all times. Listening and absorbing, and then putting forth some really good ideas can be super valuable.
That is such great advice. And, people who know me, because I am kind of a talker, they'll be surprised that I do believe in that. And there's a saying that you should grow bigger ears and a smaller mouth. And I have to remind myself. But my mom, who's a very wise woman, taught me a long time ago that people will like you so much more if you don't even have to say anything witty, as you said. If you just listen to them and ask them questions and as you said, actively listen to their responses, and then remember. That is something that I've tried to do. And then, the next time you see them, you remember that little detail, whether it's their child's name or their dog's name or where they went on their last vacation or where they went on their honeymoon or whatever. People are like, very impressed if you remember those details, and that can lead to a lot of, a lifelong friendship, relationship, or just a good ongoing basis for your relationship and future conversations. So listening is important. I love that. So Alf, my final question is to help PR Maven Nation connect with you and the Bar Harbor Chamber of Commerce. So what are some of the best ways our listeners can get in touch?
Well, as I said earlier, I'm not personally heavily engaged on social media. So if anybody wants to reach me, email or phone is the best way to contact me. My email is real easy. It's my first name, alf@visitbarharbor.com. Feel free to reach out. I'd love to hear from people, both if it's just to share your vacation experience or if you've got a specific question about some of the work we're doing in Bar Harbor, feel free to reach out. But more likely folks will want to sort of see what we're doing, the work that we're doing on our social media channels and on our website. We're basically Visit Bar Harbor everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Visit Bar Harbor. Our website's visitbarharbor.com. So if you're looking for us, look for Visit Bar Harbor and you'll find us.
That's great. And we'll share all that in the show notes. Please check out the show notes at prmaven.com/podcast. I sometimes forget to remind people that we do have show notes, and we do make a real effort to actually synopsize every episode of the podcast and share the contact information. So, Alf, this has been really great. We talked about listening, and, I've known you throughout the whole time that we've worked together. It's been years, but, having a conversation like this is just so invaluable because you and I have never sat and talked for this long, but I really, really enjoyed it a lot. And I want to thank you for joining me today.
It's my pleasure, Nancy. I love it. I love having conversations like this, and thanks again for having me.
Well, and I'm really looking forward to my time in Eden this week. One of the most beautiful places on earth.
Well, if you have a chance, swing by the chamber office and say hello. But
I will.
I'll understand. I'll understand if you spend that time at Atlantic Brewing instead.
I should be hiking up the mountain at sunrise. So we'll see about that. Well, have a great day, Alf, and have a great day, PR Maven Nation, and thanks for joining us today. That's it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you feel that you've gotten value out of today's conversation, consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you're using to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should do so. I release a new episode each week, and subscribing will make sure you get an alert when there's a new episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation by going to prmaven.com/nation and clicking join. It's free, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you have an Alexa-enabled device, be sure to add the PR Maven Marketing Minute to your daily flash briefing menu. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.